Welcome to this episode of YouTube. And we know that the wolf exhibit tends to be driven by weather, and especially for our older animals. So this is Grizzer, who is definitely showing his age. He's going to be 14 in May, and we see, especially when he's having a little bit of pain on his back right leg, that he uses the snowbanks as kind of a self-treating cooling mechanism that makes him feel a little bit better. But these warmer days, like I say, can overheat a wolf who has a very good winter coat, thick guard hairs with the dense undercoat that, like I said, sheds every spring, that we brush out of the wolves. But especially for our older animals, we're real cognitive about warmth and cold, and so on a warm day they actually seek out the snow to be able to cool themselves off. On a cool day, they seek out the cover hay to warm themselves up. So we're always very cognitive that we have both available to them. So some spots you'll notice where we don't use cover hay for this particular reason. So Grizzer is enjoying a nice 35-degree day, which is warm for a wolf, and he's certainly, doing well for his age. And oftentimes we take photographs of him on the back habitat, and this time we have a little bit of a perspective of what he sees from that back habitat. So this is one of the wolf care staff on top of the den, kind of looking out where Grizzer stands, and he gets a pretty good view of the exhibit pack, especially the wooded area where the pack can be pretty active. So that's the back habitat, and we obviously are cognitive about snow on the fences, and depth of snow is becoming an issue. Snow sliding off of roofs are things that we're working on here in the warm weather. So sometimes the camera lens can pick up things. In this case, it picked up Luna's nose and gave a little bit of an impression here, but you're going to see Luna responding to communication coming from the exhibit pack. So they're a little bit bark hauling, a little bit stressed about a visitor to the backyard, and that's causing obviously the retired pack to listen and to try to identify what might be some of the issues. And so we are in a situation where we're getting a lot of student workers coming over, trying to help us deal with snow issues and try to get the place safe from the standpoint of roofs that need to be shoveled so that the weight of the snow doesn't compact the roofs and things. So obviously when snow is coming off the roof, that means that you get opportunities to pick things out of the snow that maybe a raven has dropped. And so Luna's taken advantage of trying to, again, find items that were formerly on the roof that are now in her enclosure. And so we're always cognitive of how Luna's maneuvering, how she's supporting herself on her back right leg there. She's definitely likes to have an opportunity to run and chase and toss, and so she's doing really well there. And as a matter of fact, she actually got a scapula. We haven't been feeding Luna scapulas or deer legs that would have a shoulder bone there, so we've been keeping that from her because she's got some possessive issues with food that make it a little bit challenging for her. She tends to lay on her food for hour after hour after hour defending it, which is not good for her physical mobility and certainly not good behaviorally for Grizzer to have to deal with Luna in that pattern. But the ravens have been dropping things in for her, so that's been working out. So like I said, on a warm spring day, still want to have opportunities for that cover hay. We have some temperatures at night that are near zero, but by the daytime it warms up to near freezing of 32, and actually we've even had some 40 plus days in the last couple of days, so that's been great for Luna and great for the rest of the pack as well. So like I said, it's been a challenge to go through the winter this winter, just because we've been dealing with Aiden's issues, and we want to make sure that Aiden's comfortable, but keeping in mind that we do have retirees who need a lot of extra care as well. So like I said, the relaxation, it's not just an old issue, it's a young issue as well. And here's Grayson facing us, taking advantage of the cover hay, and Axel behind chewing on some deer parts. So one of the things obviously our exhibit does is feed carcasses, and we feed a roadkill deer every weekend, and then we always supplement with smaller prey on a Wednesday, beaver or maybe chicken parts or something like that, so that gives the opportunity for everyone to be able to get the resources that they need. Grayson's been a little bit of under the weather. We had another positive fecal for roundworm for Grayson, so we have treated him and are hoping to see him improve a little bit. This has just been a struggle for him since he's been a pup. He's just has a different immune system than Axel and the rest of the pack, actually. So it's really kind of been a Grayson issue. But like I said, we are seeing some behavioral challenges in the exhibit pack. Axel here doing a standover on Denali, and that's a passive sign of dominance, and Denali's trying to ignore it as best as he can, but Axel is definitely pushing for more status. So part of the issue with making sure that Grayson's healthy is to make sure that Grayson gets an opportunity as well to move up in rank or to be able to establish himself in rank, and not just Axel. So that's why we're very mindful of fecal collection and trying to make sure that we get test vehicles for any kind of parasitical issues. So that's been what's going on in this last week. But as I said, we do see the Arctics hanging together, sleeping together, and Bolts is usually near them, and Denali is fairly close to Aiden. And so there does seem to be some social relationships that may be genetically driven. So obviously Axel and Grayson are brothers, Denali and Aiden are brothers, and Bolts does not have a sibling within the pack. But that doesn't mean that there aren't social interactions. And again, Bolts has been the one who's been testing Aiden the hardest, and so he's probably the one that Aiden has the most difficult time with, because obviously the Arctics are still mentally immature. They still see Aiden kind of as a leader, even though they like to push and test a little bit. So it's Bolts who's been the adult who's really testing Aiden's status. And so here Aiden is not exactly welcoming with the threat display, but he's not backing off, and he's not timid, and he's not retreating. And so that's telling us that his confidence is coming back a little bit. He has a little bit of progress, and clearly Bolts is not in a threatening posture. He just wanted to get off of the ice cube that's called northern Minnesota snow, and find a warm place in the cover hay to rest. So he's not pushing any status here. He's just clearly trying to, again, find a resting spot. Aiden's letting him know that he's not all that comfortable with them, but you know what? Aiden goes back and rests and goes into a side rest, which is definitely a relaxed posture. His ears are still a little pricked and turned to the side, so he's still a little intimidated. Both his ears are pricked and turned to the side, still a little intimidated, but they're managing. And that's pretty much the best news that we have this week, is that we've had a lot of progress with Aiden. He's come to the fence to get his meds on several occasions for wolf care staff. He's definitely showing a little bit more courage, and that's likely to continue as the spring progresses, because the hormones are going to change. But there are still times when we do see some more dominant type hormones, some more what I consider to be hormonal indications of rank, and they're clearly identified here with the Arctics, who are testing Denali. So again, they're not focused on Aiden here. This is on Denali. And it doesn't take a lot of training in ethology to see that the hormones are stimulated in these two young individuals. So we see some mounting behavior. And again, all of our wolves are neutered here in the exhibit pack, but yet there's still a cycling of hormones that creates a little bit of that excitement. And obviously this is a time when we know we can expect to see a little bit more rank order dominance. So again, it's hormonally driven. This is seasonal. This is something that's going to diminish as we get closer into April, when we see prolactin hormone kind of taking over a little bit, and that's good for Aiden. As a matter of fact, today Aiden actually came into the medical pen to get weighed. So we're seeing more and more confidence, more and more movement, freedom of movement for Aiden to move around, to be able to gather food. We've not had to hand feed him as much as we did in January and early February. He's now feeding quite well with everybody. As a matter of fact, he's been for the last couple of weeks taking and guarding and possessing carcasses from the rest of the pack. So that's been a really good thing. And I have weighed him, and so he is about 136 pounds, and that's pretty consistent with where he was. One of the concerns that we had was, if we had an underlying medical issue that may have caused the lack of confidence, that may have kind of contributed to his overall issues that he had this winter. But with no real significant weight loss, no real changes in appetite or attitude, we don't see that as being probably an underlying issue. And again, without a full medical exam, we wouldn't be able to really guarantee that. But we certainly don't want to risk drugging him, taking him out of the pack, and having him vulnerable, and then having the pack kick him out. At this point, we feel like he's managing quite well. We certainly feel like his resources are being met. His weight is good. There's no indication that the mast cells have growth has returned to the spot on his leg that it had the incision earlier this year. So all indications seem to think that things are going well, and he's going to probably stay within the pack probably through the summer. We suspect that maybe next fall we may see a return that might change, obviously, his circumstance, whether he regains true dominance and leadership this summer or whether it just calms down with some prolactin hormone and nobody's really in charge. We're not really certain. But Aiden and Denali will be 10 years of age on April 27th, and so any time would be a suitable time for retirement. But we want to, like I said, make it on his terms, and as long as he's comfortable with where he is, with interactions, we do see social engagement, we see him prancing, we see him play bowing, and obviously we see him sleeping with the group, and so that's a good thing. And we predict that we'll only see improvement as time goes on and the season of spring emerges into summer. So that's it for this week. Thanks for watching.